Marcus Aurelius died the most powerful man in the world. Emperor of Rome, philosopher king, revered by millions. He also died without significantly expanding his wealth or empire, and his son Commodus destroyed everything he built within years. Niccolò Machiavelli died in exile, politically outcast, but his ideas have shaped every power structure for 500 years, and the principles he documented have created more fortunes than any philosophy of virtue ever could. Which philosophy actually makes you richer? The Stoic path of virtue, self-control, and inner peace, or the Machiavellian path of strategic ruthlessness and outcome-focused action? Most people think these are moral questions. They're not. They're strategic questions, and the answer determines whether you build wealth or remain comfortable in noble poverty. Stoicism was founded in Athens around 300 BC. The core teaching: you don't control external events, but you control your response. Focus on what's within your control: your thoughts, judgments, actions. Everything else is indifferent. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Profound. But examine what it means for wealth building. Stoicism teaches that external goods, money, status, possessions, are preferred indifference. Yes, it's preferable to have them, but they're ultimately unimportant. True wealth is internal. Virtue is the only good. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Beautiful philosophy, terrible wealth-building advice. Because when you internalize Stoic teachings, you become less motivated to acquire wealth. Why chase money if it's an indifferent? Why build an empire if external success doesn't matter? Why compete aggressively if virtue is the only good? The Stoic focuses on controlling their response to poverty rather than escaping poverty. They accept their station rather than fighting to change it. Consider Seneca. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. This is wisdom for contentment. It's poison for ambition. Wealth building requires craving more. It requires dissatisfaction with current state. The Stoic extinguishes that fire in pursuit of inner peace. Or the Stoic teaching on external validation. Marcus Aurelius. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. The Stoic becomes indifferent to others' opinions. Noble. But wealth building often requires reputation management, status signaling, and strategic self-promotion. The Stoic who truly internalizes indifference won't play those games and will lose to those who do. The Stoic teaches amor fati, love your fate. Whatever happens is what the universe ordained. This creates resilience in hardship. It also creates passivity. The Stoic accepts being underpaid as fate, rather than negotiating aggressively. They accept business failure as outside their control, rather than fighting ruthlessly to win. Here's the core problem. Stoicism optimizes for peace, not power. For contentment, not conquest. For virtue, not victory. And in a competitive market economy, the peaceful and virtuous often get dominated by the aggressive and strategic. But Stoicism has wealth-building value. Stoic emotional control is valuable. The ability to remain calm during market crashes or negotiations gives you advantage. Warren Buffett's "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful" is essentially Stoic emotional regulation applied to investing. Stoic focus on what you control prevents wasted energy. Instead of complaining about unfair markets, You focus on your actions within those systems. Stoic discipline and delayed gratification build capital. The Stoic who controls spending and invests the difference accumulates more than the hedonist who consumes everything. So Stoicism provides emotional regulation, focus, and discipline. But it lacks the aggressive strategic framework necessary for major wealth creation. It gives you tools to manage yourself. It doesn't give you tools to dominate markets, crush competition, or build empires. For that, you need Machiavelli. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513 as a manual for acquiring and maintaining power. It's the most honest book about power ever written. Machiavelli described how power actually works, not how people wish it worked. The core Machiavellian insight: outcomes matter more than methods. The ends justify the means. Moral virtue is often a liability in competition. Practical effectiveness trumps ethical purity. Machiavelli: it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Where Stoicism asks, how do I maintain virtue regardless of outcome? Machiavellianism asks, how do I achieve my outcome regardless of methods required? Where Stoicism teaches acceptance of fate, Machiavellianism teaches manipulation of circumstances. Let's examine Machiavellian principles and their wealth implications. Reputation over reality. Machiavelli: everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The Machiavellian understands perception is more valuable than truth. If you appear successful, people treat you as if you are, which creates actual success. Think about entrepreneurs who faked it till they made it. They projected confidence before having results, because projecting confidence helps create results. Strategic relationships. Machiavelli: friendships that are obtained by payments may be lost when payments stop. The Machiavellian views relationships transactionally. Every connection serves a purpose. The Stoic finds this repugnant. The Machiavellian finds it practical. This is why Machiavellians build more valuable networks. They're strategic about who they spend time with. They cultivate relationships with powerful people, regardless of personal likability. The Stoic spends time with virtuous friends, regardless of strategic value. Flexibility over consistency. The Machiavellian adapts their approach based on circumstances. They're generous when generosity serves them, ruthless when ruthlessness is required. They're not bound by consistent principles. They're guided by effective outcomes. The Stoic values consistency. This is admirable. It's also predictable, and predictability is weakness. Your opponents can anticipate your moves and exploit your principled rigidity. Preemptive aggression. Machiavelli: the Romans, foreseeing troubles, dealt with them at once, and even to avoid war, would not allow them to go unresolved. The Machiavellian strikes before being struck. When they see a competitor emerging, they eliminate the potential threat immediately. The Stoic might see this as unjustly aggressive. The Machiavellian sees it as prudent risk management. The appearance of virtue without the constraint. Machiavelli: a prince must seem to have compassion, faithfulness, kindness, integrity, and nothing is more necessary than to seem to have this last quality. Notice, seem to have, not actually have. Actual virtue constrains your options. If you're genuinely committed to honesty, you can't use strategic deception when advantageous. But appearing virtuous gives you all the benefits: trust, good reputation, without the constraints. The Stoic finds this disgusting. The Machiavellian responds, I don't claim to value virtue. I value success. And in a world where ruthless competitors exist, genuine virtue often leads to being exploited. Here's the Machiavellian perspective. Money is power. Power is the ability to shape circumstances according to your will. Any method that increases power is justified, as long as you don't get caught. This is why Machiavellian principles create wealth more reliably. The Machiavellian does whatever works. The Stoic does what's virtuous and hopes it works. But Machiavellianism has costs. The Machiavellian accumulates enemies. Everyone you ruthlessly compete against remembers and waits for your weakness. The Machiavellian lives in permanent insecurity. Because you assume everyone operates like you can never truly trust anyone. Every relationship is transactional. You're never at peace. The Machiavellian sacrifices inner life for external success. You become so focused on power that you lose genuine feeling and authentic connection. So we have two philosophies with opposite strengths. Stoicism creates internal peace, but external vulnerability. Machiavellianism creates external power, but internal emptiness, which makes you richer. The wealthiest people in history are rarely pure Stoics. Marcus Aurelius inherited his position. He didn't build wealth through Stoic philosophy. Modern Stoics who achieve wealth typically apply Stoic emotional control within otherwise Machiavellian frameworks. Meanwhile, Machiavellian principles are visible in every major fortune. Rockefeller's Standard Oil? Pure Machiavellianism. Strategic aggression, preemptive competitor destruction, manipulated reputation. Bezos building Amazon? Machiavellian. Conceal intentions, crush competition totally. Strategic ruthlessness with PR-managed reputation. Steve Jobs at Apple? Machiavellian. Reality distortion field is literally strategic deception. Ruthless focus, crushing competitors. Even Warren Buffett operates Machiavellian principles. Patient strategic positioning, information asymmetry, reputation management, buying distressed assets from desperate sellers. He projects folksy virtue while executing calculated dominance. The pattern is clear. Major wealth builders use Machiavellian strategy. Some add Stoic emotional control. But the core approach is Machiavellian. Why? Because wealth building is fundamentally competitive. You're competing for capital, talent, customers, market share. In competition, the more aggressive and strategically flexible player usually wins. The Stoic approach produces modest comfort and internal contentment. The Machiavellian approach produces power and wealth. But the most successful aren't purely Machiavellian. They're selectively Machiavellian, with Stoic emotional regulation. The ultimate approach combines both philosophies strategically. Use Machiavellian thinking for strategy. What outcome do I want? What methods will achieve it most effectively? How do I position myself for maximum advantage? How do I neutralize competitors? Use Stoic thinking for execution. How do I maintain emotional control during setbacks? What's within my control right now? How do I avoid being controlled by fear or greed? This integration looks like Machiavellian in business competition, Stoic in personal reaction to outcomes. You play ruthlessly to win, but you don't emotionally collapse when you lose. Machiavellian in opportunity identification, Stoic in disciplined execution. You're aggressive about finding advantages, but you have discipline to delay gratification and compound returns. Machiavellian in relationship strategy, Stoic in emotional non-attachment. You're strategic about which relationships to cultivate, but you're not emotionally dependent on any relationship. Machiavellian in reputation management, Stoic in self-perception. You manage how others see you, but internally, you're not dependent on their opinion. This is what you see in successful entrepreneurs. Ray Dalio combines both. His principles are Stoic, radical truth, accept reality as it is. But his hedge fund strategy is pure Machiavellianism. Exploit inefficiencies, strategic positioning. Elon Musk uses Stoic acceptance of extreme risk. But his competitive strategy is entirely Machiavellian. Crush competitors, control narrative, strategic aggression. Here's how you do it. Define your strategic goals, Machiavellian style. Be honest about wanting power and wealth. Then define your ethical boundaries, Stoic style. What methods are you absolutely unwilling to use? Where's your line? Define it based on your values. Then pursue your Machiavellian goals aggressively within your Stoic boundaries. Be ruthless within the rules you set. Don't exceed those boundaries. That's your Stoic commitment. But within them, be completely Machiavellian. Use Stoic practices for emotional regulation. Daily meditation on what's within your control. These practices prevent emotional instability. Use Machiavellian analysis for competitive strategy. Study competitors' weaknesses. Position yourself strategically. Build strategic alliances. The key is compartmentalization. In business and competition, you operate Machiavellian principles. In your internal experience, you maintain Stoic equanimity. Pure Stoicism leads to noble poverty. You'll have inner peace and strong character. You'll die without significant wealth or power. Your virtue won't protect you from being exploited. Pure Machiavellianism leads to wealthy misery. You'll accumulate power. You'll die alone, paranoid, unable to trust anyone. The integrated path accepts both failures are possible and works to avoid both. You build wealth through Machiavellian competition. You maintain sanity through Stoic practice. You live in the tension between external ambition and internal acceptance. This is uncomfortable. You have to be ruthless and compassionate, ambitious and content, strategic and authentic. But it's the only path that produces both wealth and well-being. For building serious wealth, Machiavellian principles are more effective than Stoic principles. This is empirically true. The wealthiest people used strategic aggression, competitive ruthlessness, and outcome-focused flexibility. But for maintaining sanity while building wealth, Stoic practices are essential. Without emotional regulation, the stress destroys you. Without acceptance of what you can't control, you become neurotic. Without discipline, you squander what you gain. So the functional answer is Machiavellian strategy, Stoic execution, and clear ethical boundaries you define for yourself. Be ruthless in competition. Be calm in response. Be clear about your limits. Marcus Aurelius had inner peace and died having preserved but not expanded his empire. Machiavelli died in exile, but his ideas rule the world. Modern billionaires use Machiavelli's playbook with Stoic emotional control and become both wealthy and relatively sane. Choose your path consciously, understanding what you're optimizing for and what you're sacrificing. Because the path you choose determines not just your wealth, but what kind of person you become. And unlike money, you can't leave your character behind when you die.